What's happening around the world? It's time for another serving of News Bites.
最近国内外发生哪些大事？午餐搭配 ICT News Bites， 慢慢的一口接一口吸收最新时事和趣闻。
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of News Bites. I'm Trevor Tortomasi.
And I'm Nancy Sun.
In today's news,
Taiwan waits longer.
NASA rolls out the rocket.
And the Ever Forward stops.
All that and more coming up next.
Top of Taiwan.
台湾今年可能会维持检疫规则. Taiwan might be keeping quarantine this year.
It has been difficult to travel in the past 2 years because of the pandemic, 疫情. But it's been especially difficult because of quarantine, 居家检疫.
That means new visitors, 旅客, to each country have to stay inside alone for up to 14 days.
按照我们目前的防疫措施，从国外回来之后都必须要前往防疫旅馆或是集中检疫所先进行隔离。
And that makes traveling harder because it can make each trip, 旅程, 14 days longer.
Now that many people have gotten vaccines, 疫苗, and gone back to work, most countries don't use quarantine as much anymore. But a few countries still have strict rules, 严格的规则, for quarantine, including Taiwan.
Many people in Taiwan don't want to leave because they know they will have to stay inside when they come back. And many are asking when we can spend less time in quarantine or when we can stop completely.
越来越多人打疫苗，加上疫情趋缓，边境管制有可能松绑吗？
Taiwan's Health Minister, 卫生福利部部长陈世忠 says Taiwan might have to keep quarantine rules for this year. He also says it's difficult to predict, 预测.
Of course, many people agree that Taiwan needs to open up eventually, 迟早. But before it does, we also have to make sure hospitals are ready to help everyone who gets sick. 台湾开放让观光客进来之前，我们要先确认医院能够准备好照顾所有可能会生病的人。
So until we can travel without worrying about quarantine, just remember that there are still lots of places to go in Taiwan. And until then, remember to stay safe and healthy.
Going global.
美国太空总署巨大的新火箭搬到发射台。NASA's giant moon rocket moves to launch pad.
It's already been almost 50 years since humans traveled to the moon. But NASA, 美国太空总署, wants to change that.
For the first time after more than half a century, NASA is closer to returning to the moon than ever before.
For years, they have been building a huge rocket, 火箭, to take people back to the moon. It's called the Space Launch System, 太空发射系统, or SLS, and it's about 100 meters tall. That's almost 1/4, 1/4, the height of the Taipei 101.
The SLS rocket is so big that NASA had to use a giant car called the Crawler Transporter just to move it. SLS 火箭大到 NASA 需要用一台巨大的太空梭运输车来搬运火箭。
The car is like a big, flat house with wheels, 车轮, which drives the SLS rocket to the launch pad, 发射台, and it moves at a speed of only 1 kilometer per hour, 时速1公里, so it took all night to drive the rocket just 7 kilometers.
Now NASA scientists are getting ready for a rehearsal, 排练, on this Sunday, April 3rd. If everything goes well on that day, then scientists will plan the SLS's first launch for May, June, or July.
The first launch will send a test capsule to orbit the moon so NASA can learn how to prepare for their next launch. SLS 火箭第一次发射会发送一台不载人的测试性太空船去环绕月球，好让 NASA 研究要怎么准备下一次的发射。
Then in 2 or 3 years, they will launch a ship with real astronauts, 太空员. It won't be long until there are people living on the moon again.
Today's feature.
长荣集团又发生货轮问题。 Another Evergreen ship has big problems.
Hey, remember the Ever Given? It's a giant cargo ship, 货轮, run by the Taiwan-based company Evergreen Group, 长荣集团.
Last year, it got stuck, 卡住, in a river in Egypt for 6 days. And during that time, no other ships could move past it.
Well, the Evergreen Group has had another ship-related problem. 长荣集团又发生了一个跟船有关的问题。
Another one of its cargo ships, the Ever Forward, got stuck for a while too. It was traveling through a deep river, 很深的河, in the U.S. to deliver 运送 some cargo.
But then it moved into water that was too shallow and couldn't move any further. 它开到河水太浅的地方后就无法移动了。
Luckily, this time it didn't block 挡住 any other ships from moving past it. It also didn't lose any cargo and no one was hurt.
But we can still learn a lot from the irony, 讽刺. A ship called the Ever Forward. Well, it stopped moving forward.
So be careful what you name your ships. It might become the punchline of a joke. 笑话的笑点.
The recap.
So, in today's News Bites, Taiwan's health minister Chen Shizhong says Taiwan might have to keep quarantine rules for this year. He also says it's difficult to predict.
Many people agree that Taiwan needs to open up, but we also have to make sure hospitals are ready to help everyone who gets sick.
And NASA has been building a huge rocket to take people back to the moon.
Its first launch will send a test capsule to orbit the moon so scientists can learn how to prepare for their next launch. Then, in 2 or 3 years, they will launch a ship with real astronauts.
And the Evergreen Group has had another ship-related problem.
One of its cargo ships, the Ever Forward, was traveling through a deep river to deliver some cargo, but it moved into water that was too shallow and couldn't move any further.
And that's today's episode of News Bites.
This week, we asked you to have your say about acting in a movie. 7-year-old Emma from Jinhua Elementary School in Taipei says she'd like to live in a world of magic.
If I could choose one of the movies to be in, I will be in the Harry Potter because it's full of magic and many fantastic beasts. I want to fly on a broomstick and join a Quidditch team. I want to be one of the chasers.
And that does it for this week's Have Your Say. Remember, if we used your answer in the show this week, we'll be sending you a gift in the mail. Make sure to tune in again next week for an all-new question.
ICRT 与教育部国民及学前教育署下次继续和您聊新闻。ICRT App 和网站也能重复收听。
More local and international news next time on News Bites. Brought to you by the K-12 Education Administration. Find past episodes available on the ICRT website and app.